Hello and welcome everyone to today's second Emerge Lakefront podcast episode. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm very grateful to have with me Leo Wezelius. And I just want to say welcome, Leo. Great that you're here.
Thank you.
And I can imagine many people are now asking themselves, who is Leo? So I wanted to invite you, if you want to share something, who are you? What are you excited about? I know it's the smallest and yet the biggest question that we can ask. Who am I? Who are you? And yeah, if you want, just feel free to
Thank you.
introduce yourself a little bit.
My, thank you. Thank you. As you said, it's a big and a small question. In this very moment, I am Leo living at Lakefront. I am working with nature tour guiding, and that means that I'm taking people into nature, and I facilitate a space for them to connect with themselves. And that journey to find out that nature tour guiding is something I want to be doing, which is related to what I am, I think has been a journey of asking that question over and over again. Like, who am I? Because I've done quite a lot of different things, and my kind of life started as I grew up in Södermalm in the city of Stockholm. I have two younger sisters, Clara and Alice, who I love very much. And I have a mom and a dad. My mom is a flamenco teacher, so she's teaching flamenco and other dance forms in the Sami schools up north in Sweden and also in Stockholm, Södertälje. And my dad is a freelancing musician, playing like everything from folk music to jazz, and yeah. So I grew up in this creative family, and I think then I went into technology, and I discovered the world of tech startups and things that are scalable and all of this. And I think my finding my way back to who am I has been a journey of like from who am I to whose am I. And I will explain more what I mean by that. So yeah, maybe you can ask more questions and they will naturally unfold. But I just want to like frame it as I think I am still in an exploration of who I am. What I'm doing right now is very much the essence and like the distilled essence and the kind of synthesis of a lot of different experiences that made me really confused and then eventually got me into this place where I'm now, where I feel like självklar, which this is what I am.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And you were speaking also a little bit about tech startups and startups. What did you do? Like, I know that you've stepped on this journey of contributing to um, to a climate that we all would love to live in through one of your startups. What did you do there?
Mm. So basically what I ended up doing was when I studied at university, I studied like engineering. And after roughly 1 year, I had a good friend who was interested in entrepreneurship, and so was I. We were part of you could say, a little group of people in our age that were all like really excited to start a business. We didn't know exactly which business, but we were looking up to all the entrepreneurs that you saw and all the tech companies. So we ended up going to Silicon Valley to visit some tech startups and universities. And I remember this was just after my India trip that I'd done by myself when I was 19. And I'd had this like awakening to spirituality in a very deep way. And so I was asking myself, what is the next step? And one thing was for sure, was that I wanted to build something that was greater than myself. It sounds cliche, but that was true. And I wanted to do something that was not just, technology or software, but something that is like tangible. So when me and my friend was in San Francisco, we saw some different startups. And one of the startups, I remember, we walked into this huge brick building downtown SF, and we saw scientists sitting and working on like big futuristic machines, and they were extracting bean proteins from mung beans and different seeds from the Amazon, and they were using these beans and like doing advanced chemical processes to make them into vegan foods, and then became like omelets and sauces and cookies and things that normally wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't be able to make without animal protein. And now I have a different perspective as well on like alt protein, but we were like, whoa, like young kind of entrepreneur interested people. So we thought something along this line we want to do. And then, long story short, my friend discovered research from UC Davis, which was adjacent to Berkeley, where he was doing an exchange. So while he was there and I flew back home, he read a thread that he had seen on Reddit years earlier, which showed that if you feed 100 grams of a red dried seaweed called Asparagopsis taxiformis, tongue twister, to cows each day, 100 grams, you can reduce up to 90% of the methane emissions that these cows produce. And for your information, cows produce 4 to 5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions just by farting and burping methane gas. So like massive amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And because methane is so much more potent as a greenhouse gas, that means that, and it also evaporates has a half-life that is shorter than CO2. That means that you can remove a lot of potent greenhouse gases in a short time frame. So with this seaweed in our hands, literally, we had flown to Italy, picked it. I have a film where I pick it with my toes from a pier, took it to a lab, took away some of the like the bacteria and stuff, put it in a jar, grew it, dried it in our oven, took it to Brilliant Minds, this tech conference in Stockholm. We pitched it, and we managed to tell our story of this seaweed in a way that made us raise money. So all of a sudden, after a bit more than 1 year of university, I paused my studies, and so did Fredrik and my other friend, and we started Volta Green Tech. So that was how we ended up doing this startup. And today Volta is supplying Coop and Axfood with our solution. It's at the moment it's a bit more complicated than that. There's like things with the solution that needs to be fixed, but it's basically you can buy methane reduced cheese and methane reduced meat in stores today. And so I was like really into climate impact, and I saw that if we can tell this story to enough people, we can unite people that thought meat was bad around making it less bad. At least that was how I used to think. And we could also get the people who thought meat was great but saw the climate impact to think, how can I choose something that's a bit more sustainable? So it became this. May I continue on this?
Please, I find it incredibly fascinating.
This was for me, this process led me to the end of my engagement, my active engagement in Volta Green Tech, because I realized that I think, what I actually am really passionate about is to get people of different views to see the same thing and see a way forward together. So I ended up having a bit of a, I guess you could call it sort of burnout. I'd had, a long relationship end, and there was different things that happened in my life that converged into a personal crisis. And having gone to the next stage in my life, I decided to actually, I would say it like this. I ended up with another project in my lap, which had a similar dynamic in trying to get different people seeing things from different perspectives to see the same thing. And this was in now blockchain space. So I founded another company called Norn. Norn is short for the Norns, which are the witches that sit under the tree of life in Nordic mythology. And the Norns, Skuld, Verdandi, och I can't remember the third one, past, present, future. They weave the threads of destiny, and they smear the bark of Yggdrasil, the tree of life, to prevent it from rotting, which is the tree of like the wholeness of the world. And the reason we choose that name was because we wanted to educate the world, and the Nordics specifically, in local languages, about the potential and the ethos, the values behind what we saw as Web3, a new version of the internet that is possible with blockchain technology. So this is all a lot of technical terms and storytelling terms, but to make it really simple, you can say that the technology that powers Bitcoin and Ethereum cryptocurrencies is not just money. It's also digital assets. So you can say that these two cups, for instance, they are fungible. They are exactly the same. You can change them for each other. Doesn't matter. Whereas this and the cup, they're not fungible. So apart from Bitcoin, which is fungible, it's like a dollar, doesn't matter which one you have, there's also non-fungible tokens. And these non-fungible items can be anything from a driver's license to a house to a passport and digital art. So this technology has enabled the world of physical assets and digital assets to be stored in such a way that you can now build an economy on top of it. And there's so much you can talk about. But the essence of this was that I saw that, wow, we could create a different world in theory with this technology, because what this enables us to do is to distribute decision making and governance, the way we make decisions. And there are examples of prototypes, pilots, and tests of this, where you take these technologies and you use them to create a form of democracy, where people have digital identities that they can use to vote on things. And zooming out a bit, because it's a rabbit hole, it's actually many rabbit holes, coming from Volta Green Tech and seeing this outer impact of climate change, I started becoming more and more interested in, how can we change the very systems that we live in? So not just make the current system of meat production, which is not so great in many ways, less bad, but actually change the systems that, funnel the money and have the society functioning like it does today to a little bit more human. How can we make it more human? How can we include more people's opinion, more wisdom? And so in this journey, we ended up running out of money. And I think it was because we had so many different things we wanted to do and we were a bit scattered all over the place. I met another person who, during that journey of 1.5, 2 years, had become my friend. And it turns out that we had very similar realizations about what the technology of this, the potential of this technology was. So we discussed a sort of extension of what I was talking about in Norn, and we created something called River. And River is, again, a synthesis of a lot of insights from this megatrend of Web3 technology, blockchain, and AI. So AI had just started booming and blooming. OpenAI's models had been released. People had started playing with these models. And we wondered, when you build systems that decentralizes power and decision making, what kind of human and culture do you need in order for those to function? And I think that is a core question here at Lakefront as well, because it feels like we're trying to create a new parallel reality almost, where we trust more, we lean more into our curiosity, our playfulness, our compassion and care, and less into fear, saying things is right or wrong, and this thing that we see sometimes in modern politics. So with these questions, we started exploring what could we build, and we ended up building a prototype for a decision-making tool that uses AI, and also in a way that asks questions to humans. So instead of humans asking questions to AI only, this AI asks questions to humans so that we can unlock more of our wisdom. And to finish the arc, it's been a long journey here, but to finish the arc, during this process, I realized that what I'd been looking for all along, and that what I was most interested in, apart from this thing of uniting people, was within myself. Because I could see that the thing that brought me most joy was this feeling of connecting. When I connected my worldview to that of others, when I connected other people's worldviews to each other, so that we felt this shared humanity, like I'd felt when I grew up with my 2 sisters and my parents. And I saw that in a time of more machine, where artificial intelligence is surpassing human intellect very rapidly, we still need wisdom. We still need the ability to hold contradicting perspectives, like in politics or in a startup or here at Lakefront, in order to move forward together. So in a way, I started my journey in this tech space where it was a lot about building technology, and then I realized, wait a minute, I'm actually not, best in the world at programming. Like, I tried that, that's not my core thing. I'm much more interested in the human aspect. So now I study anthropology, and I'm working on taking people into nature so that we can connect with more of our, let's say, right brain hemisphere, not just the logics, but also this holistic realization and sensation that we're part of something greater than ourselves, and unlocking more of the, I would say, hidden wisdom that we have, like compassion and curiosity and imagination.
Thank you for sharing this arc and this journey and story of yours. And I find it so fascinating, like the way you were describing that you're coming from this very creative background and then exploring in creative ways technology, how you want to contribute, who you are. You shared about this trip in India and then coming back to wisdom. And I guess like in this episode, we'll be talking quite a bit about wisdom as well. And before we go there, I also wanted to ask you about your experience being here at Emerge Lakefront. Like, how do you feel? What is this place for you? What attracts you to Emerge Lakefront? And yeah, why are you here?
I think what attracts me to Lakefront is the emergent properties, intellectual, but like emergent properties of Lakefront, that the things that feel emergent. And when I say that, I mean spontaneous interactions with people that otherwise probably would not have happened if we weren't living in the same space. And this can be anything from a conversation yesterday night when I was looking for my partner, and I went down and she was on a walk, and I ran into a person that I'd met once before. And because of this serendipitous nature of running into each other in the middle of the night, we started talking about things we otherwise wouldn't have talked about. And it turns out we know the same person from the other side of the world, and he's now working with him, and we've been working together. And it was like a lot of different, funny synchronicities or serendipitous moments that unlock things. And it unlocks for me this feeling of flow and this sensation of like, wow, things are possible. And we talked actually specifically yesterday night, we talked about when you are trying to create a different world in the outside world, it is as if that process begins within each of us in like believing, I believe something is different and I carry a certain perspective of the world. And when I bump into somebody else, that creates traction. Those two worldviews start rubbing off on each other. And we have maybe some minor value clash somewhere, and we start to discuss what those value clashes are. And then as we do that process, we start creating a shared reality, but it's like you need that traction in order for that to be possible, this dance. And I find that when I'm only on my phone or when I live alone, that is much less likely to happen, and much, much less likely to happen spontaneously. So this physical, instead of this traction means that I get much more dance partners in, shaping my worldview. And when those worldviews start shaping each other, this becomes a emergent process. And this emergent process spirals into something that you never could have thought of. Like, I would never have arrived at the insights and the beliefs and the, not just like mental thoughts, but the integrated human bodily experience beliefs that I carry today without other people. And what is special about Lakefront is that the people here come here with an intention and an experience to be mature enough to not just be self-serving, but to look beyond themselves and be self-aware that I might be projecting my emotions and my worldview onto something else. And I'm brave enough and compassionate enough, both towards myself and also towards others, to voice that, which means that we can have discussions about sensitive things. We can have moments where we feel vulnerable or we feel sad or we feel angry, but that's okay. And each time we help each other. Like, some people might be up, some people might be down, we regulate. we might disagree on something, we find a new way that neither of us would have thought was possible. So this like shared effort where everyone walks the extra mile makes for a lovely existence. And then you can share meals, you can play tennis, you can go swimming, you can play guitar, which I look forward to doing more with you. And it just flows and it becomes a creative process. So it's like feels like a fire speech for creativity.
Thank you for sharing that. And I also remember a couple of moments that we shared together. One of them was having a jam session. And after that jam session, like the sense of, let's go to the whiteboard, let's create an idea and vision and which kind of events you want to create. And exactly what you were saying, I totally relate with that. This moments that just flow from one to the other. And it feels like the professional work life and the life merge and flow from one moment to the other. And we can have like a house meeting, and then we can be playing tennis, dancing outside, and then creating another vision for another event.
So I really agree with that. And on that note, I think what's another thing that's super special to kind of give an idea of Lakefront is like, usually when you have these moments, like I think most people have those moments every once in a while. But often when that ends up happening, it's like, oh shit, I gotta go home. And there's only so many buses that goes home, so I need to leave now. Or like, oh, I have children, or like there's some things that just breaks that flow. But here it's like the flow can continue. And because Lakefront is so big physically, that means that you can also take your space, you can go home, you can do yoga, you can take a nap, you can like do all these things in the same space without having to go outside or bring a key or like, have I got everything with me? You can be kind of flowing. And that's what makes this generative spiral thing grow and grow and grow. It doesn't like have to limit itself to all these external worldly conditions, because once you're inside of this cell, you don't need to cross the membrane all the time. And that is phenomenal. And each of the cells in this organism also has their membrane, so you can trust that if you feel really tired by my intensity, you can withdraw. So yeah, pretty awesome.
And I'm also really looking forward to playing more guitar together. That for sure.
Let's go.
And I wanted to pick up the thread that you mentioned before around the topic of wisdom. And I was wondering right now, as you were describing becoming on working, being active as a nature guide.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, how do you currently see this connection between guiding through nature, wisdom, and the entire background that where you're coming from?
Juicy question. I think I need to untie my hair to answer this question. I think it's like a really as I said in the beginning, it's like the synthesis, the summan av kardemumman, as you say in Swedish. It's like the sum of the cardamom of all my experiences combined into one thing. Because to reiterate the story or the narrative or the worldview I have, it's like we're birthing artificial general intelligence. There's so many things you could say about it. I'm not an expert. I don't think there's so many experts. There's so much happening there, so it's hard to catch up. But one thing is for sure, that we are creating something very powerful. And I view technology as a form of leverage. Technology is leveraging whatever you apply it to, almost. Except for maybe one thing, wisdom. I think wisdom is something that we as humans need to cultivate within ourselves.
What is wisdom for you?
So I think wisdom is many things, and one helpful framework that I sometimes use or draw on to explain for myself and for other people and make sense of what wisdom is the Inner Development Goals framework, which is something that Thomas and some other people that are engaged in this community have been working a lot on. And for those of you who don't know, the Inner Development Goals framework is a framework that was created as a response to the Sustainable Development Goals, which we as a humanity aren't making such a good progress at right now. We're far behind on many of the goals that we have for sustainable development. And so some people, including Thomas and some others here, ask themselves, what might we do to develop the human qualities, or what are the human qualities and skills that we need to be able to get our shit together and solve the Sustainable Development Goals, or reach them or whatever. And they come up with, they basically surveyed a lot of people, and they saw that this is like a smorgasbord of skills and qualities that you need as a human to be able to collaborate, to take action, to have courage, to self-reflect, to become clear on what is my values, how can I live by them. There's things like acceptance and commitment training, like defining your values and living them. There is things like inner compass and so on. And they distilled all of this into like an ice cream bar. So you have in this ice cream bar 5 different categories of flavors, and within each flavor you have sub-skills and categories. So there's being skills, like how do I be with myself, sense my inner values, my integrity, my compass. There's a lot more, you can look it up online. Then there is thinking skills. How can I critically think about questions? How can I have multiple perspectives, seek new perspectives? There's relating, there's collaborating, and there's acting. And this framework is like a palette of humanness. And I think that even though AI is very, very intelligent, a lot of those things, if you look at what it says, are uniquely, at least for now, human skills that we humans need to embody, not just think about, but embody in order to be able to collaborate. And one concrete way to explain why this is important, and I would call this wisdom. Like I would say all those things relate to wisdom. And there's many definitions of wisdom that you can use, but one is, for me, this palette of skills. The reason we need this, I think, is because there's technical problems in the world, but most of the problems that we have that are like super, super urgent, like climate change, aren't just technical. They're actually so-called adaptive, or maybe you could say human problems, because the problems is not of a technical nature, meaning that you can, use a predefined solution to solve them, or an expert to solve them. Nobody knows how to solve climate change as a whole. It is a complex, interrelated problem. So we need to look at ourselves. We need to understand that we are attached to more. For instance, we're addicted to more, and we want profit, and we want optimization, and we want XYZ. And these dynamics come from somewhere within ourselves. And if we don't see them, and if we don't work on them, and we're not able to become self-aware and collaborate around unlocking them, let's say, we won't be able to solve these adaptive problems. We need to adapt in order to solve them. And that's what the inner development goals are for. So without these skills and qualities, without being able to relate, without being able to think critically, without have the courage to take action and try things, we won't be able to solve the problems of our time. And that's why we need wisdom. So I'm basically creating wisdom walks and wisdom journeys in a wisdom guided community, so that we together, different people from the suburbs of Stockholm, from other parts of the world, from indigenous people, from corporate executives, can walk into nature and eat locally produced ancient grain bread and porridge, and discover Swedish nature reserves firsthand, and connect with the skills and qualities without necessarily naming them. I think that's part of why I'm doing this, is because I've seen that the Inner Development Goals Foundation and many others have done a tremendous job at naming, categorizing, and making it kind of legible for the mind to understand why is this important. But I think taking that and putting these ice cream or fruits of the Inner Development Goals into a smoothie and a Vitamix, like, so you can drink it together and like, ding, with your tribe, that's the thing that's missing, I think. So I want to do that. I want to take this smoothie blender, put the fruits in, invite everyone on a hike, and then once we've reached a beautiful spot in the sunset overlooking the Swedish archipelago, take out our smoothie glasses and like, tell me your life story. And then these skills and qualities will kind of emerge from that. So that's what I want to do as an nature tour guide. Yeah. Because in a time of more machine, we need to become more human. And the next chapter in the story of the man and the machine, and humanity and machine, I think is still unwritten. And I would like to add a bit of spice. I think it needs to happen now. I think we need to have the courage to say, we don't know what's happening. We just know that there's a lot of things happening in the world, and things are looking a little bit too much like the 30s. Maybe we can, you know, learn something from someone else that we've never met before, that has a completely opposing view and seems like somebody I would never want to talk to. If I would only, you know, see what unites us, what do we have in common? Shared human.
Listening to you, to your story, the journey, what you're currently doing and exploring inspires me so deeply. And I really feel like this, that you, from how I am perceiving you through this conversation, like really embody this thought of, okay, it needs to start with myself and it needs to start with the journey within and listening closely and following the call and the path. And I see that you now stepping on this path of doing wisdom walks and combining all of your own ice cream flavors that you've been gathering throughout your life and putting them into your own smoothie.
Oh, yeah.
Is like, yeah, it feels so like truthful, and I feel that it comes from such a place of integrity. So I really, really celebrate that. I really see how you are living, like walking the talk. I really see that.
Funky flavor.
And the funky flavor of life.
Well,
Yeah.
instantly a flavor. I think everyone has a funky flavor. You just need to find it. And like everyone carries it within themselves. My dad used to say, I just want to add this thing.
Yeah, please.
Like my dad always said, like everyone is a gold mine if you just ask the right questions.
Mhm.
Like if you really listen and you become interested, you will start to like that flavor. It's like, what is this? Licorice. I never thought I'd like licorice, but I love it. I just need to, you know, savor it and have the patience. And that's, I think, true for pretty much everyone. I don't want to say everyone because people are sometimes seem insanely different, but at the very core, there's always this like core vanilla flavor. The vanilla.
Yeah, and I really love how you bringing people together, and also what you shared in the very beginning is that bringing people together, or that people can understand their perspectives and how different perspectives can enrich an experience and enrich our lives. And bringing these different people together on a wisdom walk, for me, is walking the path of wisdom. And I find it so beautiful that you're doing this and inviting this. And how I can personally relate to that is that I want to bring people together, for example, through writing these children's books that I write on nonviolent communication or emotional regulation.
They're
You've
awesome.
already seen them. Yay.
I
And
gave away one actually to a friend that just got
oh,
me. Yeah,
oh wow, okay.
her name's Hope.
Hope. Wow,
Yeah,
that feels very,
yeah,
very, very adequate.
yeah.
And I find that is so beautiful to bring people together from different walks of life and not just talking about something, but providing a space where an experience can actually be felt and integrated, that the wisdom can be experienced. And for me, with these children's books, for example, it's this wisdom that happens when different generations come together,
Right.
when
Yes.
there's like a mother and a daughter or son, and then the grandparents talking about their inner world, their feelings, their needs, and like sharing that. And I feel
Yeah,
that there's so much beauty happening there.
what you're saying there is also so clear to me. Like when I'm with my granddad, he's like an oak tree. And when I'm with him, I'm like, oh my God, I've been around birch trees all my life. Like so many birch trees in the universities, and like they're all like competing in different ways, which can also be fun. But sometimes you just need to hang out under an oak tree and get some like, you know, support, and like is somebody who's more maybe interested in listening and asking questions, and who has the capacity to hold and ask questions. And I think in the light of that, when I think about the inner development goals, I really understand why it's called inner development goals, by the way. Some people criticize it. I think it's brilliant. I think we need a corporate goal framework for corporate minds and such to kind of resonate with the lingo. But when I think about it, I secretly think of an inner development garden. And in this garden, we understand that we can't just use pesticides to get things how we want. People are like flowers, and we thrive and bloom under the right conditions. So we need to all be gardeners. We need to reforest our minds and our hearts, both internally and garden our inner world, and externally and garden each other and our relationships. And I think that's what Lakefront is for me. It is an inner development garden. where all of us take the responsibility and have the passion to garden. Because when we do that, it's so rich. It's like comparing a monocrop field with a biodynamic garden where all these different species and the mycelia and everything connects, and we create something together that enriches everyone. It's like you can sustain thousands of people on the.
I love the analogy, and I really love how that is so in the picture frame of your nature guiding. Like this, yes, we have a garden and we can cultivate it. And what comes to my mind when you speak about also inner development goals and sustainability development goals is that I'm currently working with another organization called the World Happiness Foundation. And what they also did is they took the Sustainability Development Goals, SDGs, and looked at it and saw that they are framed a lot from the perspective of scarcity, like ending poverty, minimum access to, equality. And then what they did, it was so mind-opening for me, is like, what if we looked at these goals from a perspective of pure abundance? So it's not just ending poverty, it's like well-being, great nutrition, prosperity, abundant prosperity for everyone. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like quite a stretch from where we are right now. But I also believe that what you say is we need goals. We need to have a vision in mind. And vision is probably we won't reach the state, but it's something that attracts us and we can move towards the state. And actually, now I realize that with Andrew in the first episode, Andrew Dunn, we've been talking about visions and like how visions are so important for us and that they can navigate us and attract us towards certain goals. So listening to your garden analogy for the inner development goals, thinking about an abundance frame for sustainability development goals, I find it so beautiful to see that.
I think that's one of the first lectures in anthropology was about that specific thing and how like the economic paradigm and way of thinking we have today is based on scarcity. It's just flips everything. I learned the other day that the word chaos, I think it's French, and it means upside down. It doesn't mean like chaos that we're thinking of as a mess. It's more like it's upside down. And I think that's what's happening. Like the worldview we have is a bit upside down. And yeah, when we realize that, it's like, oh, wait a minute. And then once that little crack where the light gets in has started to widen, you can like, whoa, like there's so much. And yeah, it can be blinding sometimes. And I think here at Lakefront, it's a bit more shaded. It's like blinding and shaded. So we can sustainably explore.
Yes. Thank you. I feel that with our conversation, we're slowly coming towards like a natural close. I know that we could continue for hours this exploration. And that's why in this moment, I just wanted to ask you, like, if there's anything that you still want to share where you feel like, okay, I would love for the people listening to this episode right now, either to know this about you, to take this kind of inspiration with them, whatever it is.
I mean, join a wisdom walk. I'd like to get to know every one of you. Find me on, yeah, you'll post the links.
Yes.
And I love music. Music is where my soul is at. So like playing music and yeah, eventually listening to the music I write and seeing if we can co-create it. That's something I would like to invite people to. And I think like just one thing that I actually have started reading recently about more and more as kind of an extension of my anthropology studies is like indigenous cultures. And damn, like there's so much there. Like the solutions are already here. Like looking at what was one podcast episode on this guy, from what is to what next, which is brilliant. There's a woman talking about indigenous cultures, and she's saying like, what would it take to end capitalism? Because many people say, oh, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. And she's saying like, we need to give back the land that we've taken from indigenous people, which is all of the United States of America, basically. And like, it's just huge. And yeah, that podcast I can recommend, and I can also share it with you so people can listen to it. But I think that's the thing she's doing in the podcast is they're imagining they have a time machine, and they're in the beginning of the podcast they're like activating suspension belief system, and like they like suspend all disbelief, and then they go into this vision of the future as seen by this person who is visiting the podcast. And so if that was me, I would be seeing like what we're doing at Lakefront at a global scale, in whichever form or shape it takes. But like this inner development garden spreading into workplaces, spreading into Fortune 500 companies, but also into kindergartens, into the parliaments of the world, where everyone is cultivating their inner world, so that we can bring more of, you know, beauty, compassion, curiosity, kindness, honesty, truth, wisdom, all the things into
Beautiful.
abundance.
Yeah, thank you. Is the podcast host, is that Rob Hopkins?
Yes, Rob Hopkins. Yes, exactly.
Fun fact about Rob Hopkins, he wrote the testimonial for my children's book,
Oh, wow.
Lara and the Wish Beings. Yeah, his name is on the back. So I also can recommend everyone listening to his podcast, reading his book. He's a really fascinating guy working on the transition movement.
You should get him on this podcast.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be actually really nice.
Me and Michelle talked about inviting him here, or like reaching out to him, because I think he's so aligned with Lakefront.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, and if any one of the people listening right now, if you have ideas and thoughts of who we should also invite here, please feel free to share them. I'd be happy to talk many different people, invite many different perspectives. Yeah. And Leo, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts, your journey, where you're at. I feel incredibly inspired by you as a human being. And I want to go on a wisdom walk with you.
Nice. I think we should definitely do that. And I think that I just want to say one last word, which is that Lakefront is an emergent process, and it is kind of a startup. So for it to not be breakfront and move into makefront, we need to bake front. We need to bake it into something. So like the more people who want to contribute to the baking and the making, I think the more successful and the more enriching Lakefront will be. So instead of saying, what can I get from Lakefront? What can I bake from Lakefront? It's like, yeah.
Yay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And looking forward to everyone listening and watching, seeing you in the next episode.